while they're there and while after they come back here. But there was no solution. There was no solution presented in that article. So I have to 100% agree with you. My son went to Princeton, developed a degree, postgraduate degree, and went to Afghanistan. He works for a State Department, not as a soldier, but with a diplomat. He went to Afghanistan. After 8 months he was there. He wrote back, he told me that the dire need of people, because I'm in that field of psychotherapy work, and so there's dire need of this service in Afghanistan and other places, and they need people to come. I don't want to get a room, but there was so much red tape involved to get me there, because I wanted to go for maybe 6 months to provide services there. That's one that we need to do that. The other thing, to make pro bono services available to these people who come back. Ready to go, they don't have to pay anything, but they have to volunteer services when they come back. But I think the urgency is there. We have to do this up. I just want to share that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think I can talk loud enough. I'm usually pretty quiet, but on this topic, the number of psychologists or counseling help that is provided. Can everybody hear me?
Use mine.
Okay. I was just wondering what the ratio is on these bases. If you people who have been deployed in those situations, what is the ratio of psychological helpers, whether they're just counselors or actually psychologists, but someone who is trained in that? What's the ratio between them and all the soldiers? And how available is it? Do you have to make an appointment, or can someone send you, or what?
Thank you.
Thanks for your question. There is, I'll tell you from my base, up at the 129th at Moffett Airfield, we have one civilian psychologist who's employed by the Air National Guard, and he takes care of, the unit has about 1,200 military people plus their families. Anyone is welcome to see him. He makes himself available 24/7, but most people do make an appointment. And it's no charge, of course, for them or their families. So we're looking at a ratio of about one psychologist per 2,000 people, give or take. When I was deployed to Southwest Asia in, what do they call it? An undisclosed location in Southwest Asia.
Somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere that is really beige and it's really flat. And, with the base where I was, we had about 2,000 active duty people, most of them Air Force, but we had one psychologist.
Well, below that psychologist, though, there's usually some other
Yes,
people.
yes, thank you for jogging my... we also had what's called a SARC, and that's an acronym, Sexual Assault Response Coordinator or Counselor. And sexual assault is, it's reality. It happens to both men and women. And so she was specialized in that area. What she also did is she trained a lot of peer counselors, as did the psychologist. So we had a lot of peer counselors. And to answer what you were talking about, we need more people. The big program within the military right now, at least Air Force-wise, Army calls it like having a buddy. The Air Force calls it having a wingman, with the Air Force metaphor. So, like, for example, if you and I were both chaplains in the Air Force, we would be each other's wingmen. Or somebody would always be assigned to watch over the other, because you're right, the chaplain can't be everywhere. The psychologist can't be everywhere. There's also, many times, a social worker. So that's a good thing. So there's a multi-disciplinary approach, to trying to help people as well. Some units also have a psychiatrist. Our unit does have a psychiatrist, but he's only part-time. But if a crisis happens, he's right there. He comes in.
Yeah, I think, and while I have that, I think the problem with anything like that, as we know in anything we do in life, is, you might have a friend who's very close who you discuss, problems with, which is your wingman or your wingwoman. And certainly a chaplain to have another chaplain, I mean, within all faith groups, I think we have our own people who are there to guide us. If we're going through a stressful time, it might just be with our own congregations. If you're in congregational life, but you have somebody to call and somebody who, has gone through some training to handle, whatever the situations might be in your own life, who's also another clergy person. The problem is that a lot of people don't like to go with people who they consider their friends. The problem is a lot of people don't like to go with somebody who might be their wingman. Laura and I are somewhat trained in being, clergy people, so we have something in common. But, my wingman really I don't want to tell my wingman, who's my buddy, everything. I'm looking for somebody else to tell everything to. So while you might say some things, there are some things bothering you. You don't want them to know, because maybe if that thing was known by them and they told it to somebody else, even though you might be so-called, sworn to secrecy as the person's wingman, things get out and things happen. And then now there's, 400 people who know about it. So I think, while those things go on and they're good, I think a lot of people still don't open up as they need to open up to, to people who would be specifically there for that issue and that thing. I think everybody, all of us, can look in our own lives and say, yeah, I talked to this one, I talked to that one, but, I look for somebody else. A lot of times that's how people wind up being with us as clergy, because they had their friend, they had this, and finally the friend might have said, have you gone to see Reverend so-and-so? Have you gone to see Rabbi so-and-so? Have you gone to see Father so-and-so? Have you gone to see my friend Gurukirn Kaur Khalsa, who used to live here in Arizona? Have you gone to see this one, that one, or the other one? And, it's like a light dawns. No, I haven't. Okay, and then they have this feeling they can express themselves even better, like they would to the chaplain when she would be there on the base, maybe than they would to their wing person. So.
I think Laura wanted to say
something. Yeah, what I wanted to clarify about the wingman, or wing person, is not so much as a peer counselor, but to watch your buddy.
Watch.
If you start to see them starting to fray,
okay.
Because you can start working 16, 18-hour days, 7 days a week, and all of a sudden you just don't see it, and your wing person might say, you need to go to sleep.
Yeah.
You need to go, have a down day, a rest day. The other thing the military is doing is really emphasizing training and awareness on resiliency. And why is it that some people crumble and others just are so resilient? They just bounce right back. It's an interesting phenomenon. And so they're trying to do a study and teach that within the military right now for people who are still in. And even, I think, for people who get out or who leave the military. But the toughest thing is, and to also answer your question about numbers, there's usually one chaplain for every 700 persons. So at my base, there's 3 of us chaplains. So we're actually the numbers are good for chaplains at the base.
The bad thing about chaplains, not that there's anything wrong with chaplains, the bad thing is the military has an age. Okay? And because I had thought about becoming a chaplain, and I've often said, and people say, is there anything you do over again in your life? I said, yes. When I got ordained, I would become a military chaplain for many, many other reasons, other than the fact of also doing and serving and being. But I would go to be a volunteer chaplain now as an ordained person, but they won't let you. Okay? They won't let you become involved in the military. They don't want to pay your medical. They don't want to pay your other. And I understand that. I'm older. I've just retired. I could have a heart attack tomorrow. The person who's 34 or 40 or whatever, his chances of having a heart attack is not as good. They don't want to be responsible for that type of thing. On the other hand, all you hear about is the great shortage of clergy and chaplains in the military. So how wonderful it would be if they wouldn't open it up to clergy who have finished but still want to give somehow, some way to help out. Even if it's making it that you could help out in a local base, so the local chaplain could be sent somewhere where they're needed overseas. And we could be the chaplains on the local basis.
Yes.
It's not like I'm looking for great rewards monetarily from that. I'm looking to serve my country. And yet there's no way for me to do that.
Thank you.
So that's...
We have time for a very short question, a quick question and a quick response, because we are... Is that correct, Paul? Are we about at time? Yes.
My question was that I wondered if part of the problem in the military is part of the culture in the military that to be strong. I mean, they are fighting, and that's important. That's part of who they are. The unwillingness to admit problems and weaknesses and seek help with, even if there were people available, they would seek help too.
You're right. That's been the usual cultural tradition. Stay strong, be silent, don't tell the medical people anything's wrong with you or you're out. But it is changing, especially with so many deployments. And 20 years ago, no one would admit that they were on an antidepressant medication. Now, there's a lot of people on antidepressant medication.
In the military?
In the military. And you can deploy being on an antidepressant medication, depending on the deployment location. So it's losing the stigma of that negative, oh gosh, you need help, or asking for help. And that's part of the resiliency program, is saying, to get help, or to ask for help, you're actually being strong. So it's changing. They're harping on it constantly, and then the fact that they, within the last 2 years, employed the civilian counselor that I told you about, psychologist. They didn't used to have that, and he's there full time, and he's there for anyone to come and see him. 15, 20 years ago, nobody would go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Paul, you never asked your question.
So I want to give a huge thank you to all of our panelists. We had a really fascinating discussion, and it seems like we've embarked on an area that perhaps as Arizona Interfaith Movement and coming together, we might brainstorm together and vision together and see how we might make a difference with some of this red tape and things, and maybe put our different faith tradition heads together and maybe have some follow-up on this, particularly around the big need that was addressed and that was brought to light. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. And it is our goal as Arizona Interfaith to build bridges of understanding and tolerance and respect, and also to make a difference in our world. And addressing this issue today, where we started off with depression and the holidays, and we moved into a piece which has such an opportunity right now. I see something emerging from this. So I hope that we will continue this discussion at a further time, and that we will be proactive in this. And I want to invite you to stay afterwards. Paul's going to take the microphone and the floor in a moment and give us some information. But I do invite you to stay after in addition to meeting our lovely panelists and our very intelligent and wonderful panelists from today, staying to participate in the exhibit that's going on. And if you didn't hear that announcement at the beginning, Larry will be able to tell us more about that at the end of our time together. And before we all come up and greet the panelists after Paul talks, if you could allow us 1 or 2 moments to take a group picture for our website, that would be highly and very graciously appreciated. Happy Thanksgiving as I turn over to Paul now.
Thank you, Nancy. As you said, this is your first time.
Yes.
Marvelous job.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you. As usual, we have all kinds of information up here. Let me mention that the faith forums in the future, we will not have one in December because of the busy schedule. But in January the 15th, the topic is creation stories from different faith traditions. How did the whole thing begin? And the Buddhists will say it never began. Okay? But that's January the 15th, creation stories. February the 13th, the title is The Final Breath. Is death the end or just the beginning? And we'll have, again, about 4 different faith traditions sharing. March the 19th, religion and healing, praying for wellness. And then on May, we will not have one in April because of our Golden Rule Banquet. But on May the 21st, the title is Taking God Out of the Closet on Homosexuality. So you can see the faith forms we have ahead, and I think we've got some great times ahead of us. Now then, also on April the 25th will be our annual Golden Rule Banquet. If you've never attended one of those, you've got a real treat in store for you. April the 25th is a Thursday night. We'll be honoring, I think, 7 different people we believe are really living out the Golden Rule. Let me tell you real quick about one. There's a boy about 15 years old who a year or 2 ago was going to do a triathlon, swimming and then bicycling and then running. In his church, he's a Mormon boy, in his church, he had a buddy who is totally paralyzed. The only way he can communicate is by blinking his eyes. And his parents and he and friends have worked out a system where if he wants to say yes, he blinks his eye. That's the only way he communicates. This boy was going to be doing the triathlon. He had the idea, what about having his buddy participate with him? So he went to his buddy and his parents, do you want to do the triathlon? Yes. So here's this 14-year-old boy, and we've got pictures of him in the swimming with a rope tied around his waist, with a raft back here with his buddy in it, on the bicycle, with his buddy in the buddy seat. Running, they built a little cart or something for his buddy to be in it, and he ran the completion. He said about 100 yards from the end, he felt like, I cannot take another step. I can't do it. I'm done in. He looked back, saw his buddy. His buddy was smiling from ear to ear. And he went ahead and finished the race. We're honoring that kid. And he will have his buddy there. So I dare you to come and try not to have a dry eye. But it's going to be a great time. April the 25th. And you can see this flyer up here about the faith forums and about that. And then the Golden Rule word there. Then also very quickly, if you do not have a Golden Rule license plate, we have cards up here. How you can get a license plate, an official Arizona license plate that says live the Golden Rule on it. And then we have this brochure for everyone, tells who we are, what we're doing. Also, how you can become a member of the Arizona Interfaith Movement. Invite you all to take one of these, fill it out, costs $25 a year. We'd love to have every person here be a member of the Arizona Interfaith Movement. Also up here, we have books, 3 different books, and you can talk to Nancy about buying one or all those books. Also, we have our 2013 Holy Day calendars. You all know what these are. Under each month in red letters are the holy days of all the various faith groups. Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, Baha'i, Muslim, Jew, Christian, all of us. So these are here for you. Again, let me just say thank you to our wonderful panel today, and thank you all for coming.